Welcome back to another episode of On Our Pursuit. I am extremely excited for this one. I've been looking forward to it ever since I negotiated it in the DMs of Instagram. So another Shoot Your Shot Thursday success is this episode with Boxx the Artist. Now, as you're going to hear in this podcast, Boxx is a local artist. She's in Indianapolis, so just down the way from me. And it was because of this painting right here. Well, this is the print. But because of this Jay-Z painting that I saw in the Indianapolis airport, I discovered Boxx, began to follow her work, and really was intrigued by her story, which is why I asked her to come on and share how she pivoted from working in the corporate world to going all in, betting on herself, to become a full-time artist, self-sustaining everything she needs through her craft, through her passion. Now, it's a fun episode. I was lucky enough to have her come in the studio. First time we met, and you're going to see some amazing things happen. One of which I want to point out is you're going to see a moment of synchronicity between two individuals who are meeting for the first time. Our communication prior to the podcast was exclusively DMs and an email. Never talked on the phone, never met in person, but you're going to see a moment of synchronicity maybe 3/4 of the way through the episode that I'm going to point out to you. You're going to hear me mention it, which is really, really cool that you get to see how the law of attraction actually works when it comes to individuals. The other thing I want to do is point out three really important parts that I enjoyed in the conversation. I think will be meaningful to you on your pursuit. The first is just the story of Boxx betting on herself. You know, she decided that she was going to no longer let events outside of her control that she shares in the episode control what's going to happen to her in the future. So life events happened. It made her wake up that she no longer wanted to be at the mercy of others and take full control of her destiny and do that through her craft and through her passion. The second is when she talks about the in-between. Now, like in a previous episode with Austin Keene, Austin shared the things that he did to be able to give himself the ability to become a world champion skimboarder and wake surfer. He did everything he had to do. Just like that, Boxx shares the things that she did, everything from renting out her house on Airbnb and sleeping in her car to different dog walking services just to make enough money to buy her supplies, to be able to do her craft, which ultimately became her career and her full-time profession. So pay attention to the in-between. It's not always glamorous, but if you really want to go after what you want to go after, you do everything you can to make that happen. And one thing I want to throw out is not everything of the sacrifice, the in-between, has to be as drastic as what Boxx had to do or Austin had to do in the previous episode. It could be other things that you make adjustments in your life, but they are adjustments to get you to where you want to go because that's really what's most important to you. And finally, obviously I have to point out this before, the title of the episode talks about faith. Listen to what Boxx says at the very end of the episode about what faith means to her and the importance of it. And as you're probably going to be, well, you may not be surprised, but she actually mentions faith in the unknown, unconnected to the Kendrick Lamar quote that I love. And you're going to see me go crazy because of it. So that was another really cool moment. But pay attention to what she talks about, how faith to her is an action word and what she means by that. I'm not going to spoil that here. So that is all I want to do for the intro. Let's get to this awesome conversation with Boxx the Artist. Be sure to go support her. I've got the link to her website down below. Her prints are amazing. Her work is phenomenal. I'm going to continue to follow her, hopefully strike up a friendship with her so we can have her back on the episode when her show drops next year and maybe even do a collaboration. I'll put it out there in the universe with some Pursuit gear, collaborating with Boxx the Artist to do that. With that, let's get to the episode, and as always, let's keep pursuing. For a while, you had the exhibit at the Indianapolis airport. And I actually have the Jay-Z. I'll take a picture. I have the Jay-Z photo on my art wall. And I just remember walking by, and all the pieces stood out to me. But being a hip hop fan, the Jay-Z one stood out the most. So I went to the airport probably 3 or 4 times and saw it. So maybe it's like the second or third time I actually started following you on social media, looking at all your work. I thought, man, like, this is awesome. And I remember when they took it out. So I became a fan just by chance because I saw your work at the airport. And as you and I were talking about beforehand, like, things don't happen just by chance. There's right. For a reason. So maybe the reason is just this episode, or maybe there's something bigger, better along the way. But that is how I found your work. And I did an intro beforehand, but if somebody skipped through the intro, everybody, this is Boxx the Artist. She's from Indianapolis, originally from up in Gary. So she is not too far away from me. And as I go along this journey on the pursuit, like, I want to interact with more and more creatives, because as I shared earlier, I found my inner creator, and I always call her she. She's just getting going. And I want to be around more creative people because I just fuel off of them. So rather than me give your background, we're going to hit on the career into art. I always like my guests to introduce themselves because I don't think it's fair for me to do a little bit of research and try to say who you are. So Boxx, will you give everybody a short introduction to who you are?
Absolutely. Well, I'm just glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And so my name is Boxx the Artist. I am a local visual artist in Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm originally from Gary, Indiana, and I've been in Indianapolis around, I'll say about like 5, hitting that 6-year mark, coming up pretty soon. And I've been doing art as long as I've been here. Mm-hmm. So it was a very new pursuit for me, just a very new experience. And my background, I went to Purdue University in West Lafayette, Indiana. There, I studied so much stuff. It's always like a laundry list trying to get it out. But at Purdue, I studied mass communication with a concentration in media production. And I double major. I got a dual degree in mass communication, African American studies. And then I minored in political science and I got a certificate in entrepreneurship and innovation. Wow. I was very active during my college career. Joined a sorority, Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, the international Black sorority, Black Student Union president, very, very active on campus, very interactive. And from there, of course, how we talked about earlier, there's always this path that people, lay out that you go to college, you get a career, you get married, things like that. But just while I was there, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. Even going to Purdue is a very odd story. I never visited the campus before. Really? I had never looked up a major. I applied, I got in. I applied to a lot of different schools that I got into, and I was actually going to go to IU. I hate to say that out loud, but, and a friend of mine was like, no, you're not going. I was like, you right. So, like literally first day of orientation was my first time ever on campus. Oh, wow. Like very just spontaneous. And it's really odd because I feel like a lot of people think I'm a very more so strategic person in how I move and, very just analytical. So to do things that free flow, I never looked at it, until more recently, like just thinking back on those times. But never really declared a major. I started taking classes. I was like, oh, I want this to be my major. I want this to be my major. So it was just a feeling and learning experience while I was there. And but while you're there, they are just the school in general. They put a lot of effort, into making sure that they prepare, students to transition to the real world. And it's a very engineering based school. So a lot of companies that come down are in that sector. So career fairs, things like that. I ended up, when I graduated, applied to different companies and got an offer from a corporation, electrical manufacturing company. So I graduated, I moved all the way across the country. And I was working in project management for an electrical manufacturing company. Hated it. Hated the city. I didn't like being in an office all day, being in a cubicle. Of course, the youngest in the room. And then also like one of the only Black people in the room. Also just a very, not a different experience because I went throughout college experiencing that, but just being there, it just felt very out of place. And while I was there, I started to draw and sketch at my desk. And I would do that just to pass time all day. And didn't like that. I really just didn't like working there. But I think it was necessary, like the means, the ends had a means. So I learned a lot of things that helped me like today just with project management, because I essentially do that for myself right now. Most of my work is all project based. And from there, I transitioned to another company and they reached out to me. It was perfect timing. Like everything was just so divine. I think the only reason that I was there is I bought my first art kit because I started drawing. I bought an art kit, never opened it, bought canvases, brushes, everything, never opened it. And transitioned to another company in Illinois, a same industrial type company, but I was doing marketing. So it was a little bit more creative, at least so I thought. A little bit more creative out of that, cubicle environment, more, tucked away in the office, but still was isolating. It wasn't, just that creative burst of energy that I needed. And I enjoyed it. But I had a conversation with myself, and it was like, you can do this for about 3 years. And right after that, I got laid off. And so I didn't know what to do. And I'm kind of diving deep into it, but these might be some of your questions. But I transitioned from there, and I moved here after that layoff. And then I experienced another layoff, and I kind of tapped back into that entrepreneurship. I got that certificate in entrepreneurship and innovation. And I was like, okay, I need to start a business for myself so that this never happens to me again. And it's like, I never wanted to work for anybody else. And that was confirmation, because I had always just been entrepreneurial in general, starting just little things to, help people get their businesses starting. So I was writing like business plans, and, I'm the one writing people's resumes and doing things like that, small odd jobs. But I was like, let me do this for myself. So that's how I just ended up into being independent artist. And I was like, art is going to be the job, because this is something that I could literally do all day. So just from that area, once I figured out, just the area of subject, I'm like, this is the job. Let's turn it into a business. How do I monetize it? And I've been doing that for the last 5 years. And now I'm here today as a professional artist.
So I want to go back. So you were always entrepreneurial. Were you always creative?
Yeah. Okay. And when I was younger, I used to draw a lot. And you said you're a big hip hop fan, but I don't know if you used to like watch BET like back in the day. And they had this show In the Basement. Yeah. They had In the Basement, and they used to do a segment on In the Basement, and they were always people would send in like their art and drawings and stuff. And I was real young.
Yeah, I do remember that.
And I would always watch that, and I was like, I'm going to draw something and send it in. I never did, but I would always practice my drawings to send it in. But of course, I was too young to even figure out how do you mail it. Right. So I would practice. This is very odd for like however old, 10, 12. I would always draw Music Soul Child. Okay. And I would draw as a picture of him. He had his headphones, and he was leaning up against a speaker. And that's such a core memory that like recently came back to me. I was like, oh my God, I forgot about that. But I'll always watch that and just practice drawing. And then that's where my drawing came from. I would draw faces of course, just what I watched on TV, different celebrities, things like that. And I would just create the faces, and that's where it started. And even my grandmother, she would sit me in her room when I was even younger, and she would just sit me there, like draw me a picture, and she would tape them on the wall. And that's kind of just how it evolved throughout middle school, high school. I was always that go-to person to draw something, like design school hoodies, and literally probably all of our hoodies from high school, I did the design for it. Oh, cool. So, but I never knew, I just didn't know it was a bigger picture to it. It was just something that I did. And yeah, like moving to college, it stopped completely though. And I wasn't being creative at all. I wasn't really creating, but it's always been there. And that aspect has always been inside of me. And then I just, rediscovered it.
I may have to commission you to design a hoodie for the Pursuit my next round of drops. So that answers the question, because I was wondering if you didn't really start picking up the pen until later, but you've always had that in you. Just you picked it up more and more seriously. Well, it sounds like you're pretty serious the whole way. Well, I always like to give the audience why I think the guest embodies what Pursuit is about. And like your story already shares it. As Pursuit continues to grow, as I shared with you, it's going to focus more on the inner creator inside of us. And obviously you have a very strong creative soul. But the fact that you were able to turn this passion for art into your career, whether that be fully on your own or little nudges from the universe with the layoffs and things, you're able to do it. So you bet on yourself. And there's something I love that you said that I really identify with. You didn't want to work for anybody else because you wanted to be fully in control of your destiny. And I've learned over time, I wrote a blog post about this years ago, that Like, I am so big on ownership. I own my advisory firm. I'm a co-founder in a community. Like, I want to own. And it's for that very purpose. I don't want anybody to jeopardize my career, my security, because I'm confident in myself. I would bet on myself 11 times out of 10. So I really identify with that. And not everybody's meant to be a business owner, because there's a certain personality trait that you have to have. Right. But I want more people to be open to the idea of, well, let me take this thing that I love so much and I've shown that I can, make a living off of, and go bet on myself. Because then, money might be a good part of it, but also just quality of life, being able to work whenever you want and have these great benefits that come with being your own boss, I think are tremendous. And at the end of the day, the only person who's going to mess up Boxx's business is Boxx. And like, you're not going to do that. So I really identify with that. So thinking of the transition, we don't have to go too much into the corporate world stuff, because you kind of hit on that enough. And that's not, it's an important part of your story, but that's not the most important part. When you went to, I'm going to become a professional artist, independent artist on my own, kind of, how did you prepare for that? How did you prepare for that emotionally? And also, without getting into numbers, how did you prepare for it financially?
That is a great question. So the preparation, it started with my very first layoff, but I still had one foot in, one foot out. And, when it happened, I just remember speaking to my parents, and they was like, what are you going to do? Are you going to come back home? You can come home. I said, oh, no, I'm not coming home. And I didn't want to stay in Illinois. I was just thinking about the cost of living. I'm a realist. So it's like, okay, I got a severance. I have this benefits package. Now let me make the most of it. So I used that to relocate here, because I didn't want to go, I just didn't want to go back home. And I guess that's like every, college graduate's just ultimate, like, ending up on your parents' couch. Like, you done spent all this money to get a degree, and now you're back at home. So, who knows what would have happened if that was the case. But I betted on myself, and I was like, I'm going to move to Indianapolis. It was more affordable than where I was. And I'm like, there's several places out there I can find a job. I was still in the job mentality. But that first layoff was the first time that I had ever opened that art kit that I had bought, from my last job when I was living in North Carolina. And that was the first time I opened it. And I just, for a week, I didn't talk to anybody. I just opened it and I started painting. And that was like the first time that I could really remember just like really painting. Like, I'm sure we've all done it, like in elementary, middle school, things like that. But, and I posted online, and people start asking, oh, how much is this? And so that was the moment where I knew that this is the business. And I had to figure out how to get there, how to make it a business. So I was still one foot in, one foot out. When I came here, I started looking for other jobs, because it's like, okay, I have a safety net that's only going to last for X amount of time. So I need to make sure that I have another means, and a new city. I didn't know anybody. Like, of course, outside of the people that I went to school with, a few lived here, but I didn't know anybody. New city, didn't know anything. And I just had to infiltrate the art community. Like, what's going on out here? Because I figured out what it was. And I feel like the what is it could be a little bit problematic for some people, kind of figuring out what it is that you're good at, what it is that you love, what it is that you're passionate about.
How'd you know?
I guess I knew when I would sit at my desk and draw all day, because that's where I wanted to be. And, I just recently watched this Netflix show, and it's like based on dreams. And there was a moment in the show when the guy, he was like the king of dreams, and he was saying, people dream about the places that they want to be, and the places that are the most comfortable to them. And in that moment, it was like a daydream. And I was in a place that brought me comfort. I was in a place that brought me peace. And it wasn't anything that I ever needed to escape. So that's how I knew. I feel like when you find that place that is your calm And it's like, you don't need an escape from reality, how people do their 9 to 5s and they can't wait for the weekend, can't wait to clock out. It's like, I know in that moment while I would sit at my desk, nothing else mattered but that. So that was the destination.
Were you ever afraid that turning it into a business would take away the joy that you got from creating?
I never thought about that until probably later down the line. And like to making that transition from the passion to the business aspect of it. To be 100% honest, I was focused, and I think I've been more honest lately. I was focused on making a business. Like, even though the what was the passion, the why was to be self-sufficient, you know, to have income, to make money, to be able to provide. It was security at the end of the day. That was the why during that time and in my moment, after just going through my different experiences. So when I was preparing to make that transition, you know, to do this full time, the second layoff occurred, and all of this happened within a span of 2 years. So it's not too far off. And the second one occurred, I got a job out here and I worked, and they told us in June that our last day was going to be in October. And I felt like that was divine for me because it gave me my due date. Like, this is your expiration date. This is you, like, you getting kicked out. This is it. So that was so helpful, you know, because sometimes it sprung up on people. Like the first time it happened, it was sprung up on me. The first day, they was like, okay, you got to leave today. Wow. Like, we'll walk you out. So the second time, it was a little bit more strategic. And I think that was divine too. Because I literally started at that moment when they told me that, I started taking every check that I had. I would pay my bills, and anything extra, I started buying supplies. So, you know, I started thinking about ways to monetize not just the art, but to make it a service as well. So I started buying all my paints. I started buying easels. You know, paint parties were really popular at that time. So I figured out a strategy to generate income, started working on my business plan, and I really got into it. I remember, like, people would call me to come hang out. I was like, no, I'm building an empire. And I would sit there, you know, really just map out my business plan and just how I wanted everything to function. You know, got my LLC. I didn't open a business account, but I did open a separate account in my bank account. Better than nothing. Yeah, because I was like, dang, you got to have minimum funds. I'm not there yet. So, yeah, I just set everything in place as far as the framework to make sure that it was a strong foundation, and I just wasn't hopping into anything. So like, I'm very structured in that sense, having, you know, knowing how much money I needed to make a month, knowing, you know, pricing my rates. And it was really service based as well, and not just selling art, but selling a service, because I'm in Indiana. And at the time I thought art didn't really sell like that, but we're going to figure it out. So that gave me time to prepare. And it was like, you have no other choice at this point. So everything extra was literally going towards the business. And yeah.
Did you ever kind of give yourself the out? It sounded like you knew this, but how much of it was your thought process of, well, if this doesn't work out, I can always go back to corporate to find more?
That was never my mentality. I told myself I wasn't doing it. And I never filled out another application, because I did that job search the first time. The second time it happened, I'm like, this is not a coincidence. There's a reason that this is happening. And are you going to listen to it this time? Because it was something that was always inside of me, that I wanted to just work for myself and be a business owner. But I think at that time, I probably was so integrated into the culture of how life is supposed to be, quote unquote. I don't know if I would have pulled myself out of it to pursue what I wanted to. So like you said, that nudge from the universe, it was like the inertia that I needed to excel and really just go after what it is that I knew I wanted. And it removed the fear from it as well, oddly, because once you experience something like that, and I was literally just having this conversation with a friend about just experiencing hard times. You never know how you're going to react or respond to it.
Mm-hmm.
So it could bring about so many emotions, especially, you know, if I would have had a family, you know, to support or anything like that. So I know everybody's story is a little bit different and they may have different motivating factors, but it was just me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, you know, even if I make minimum wage, I will gladly make that for myself.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm the one paying me, like that's
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I can make enough to pay these bills, I'm cool. And that was literally just the driving force behind it.
I want to loop back and talk about your style because you have a unique style, which I love. But I also want to stay here because I want to talk about like your mindset and how important that was to you. And I think there's not one right mindset, but I think we need to understand what is the mindset we need to have to make us move forward. So for you, the mindset was, because I've had guests that say, you know, worst case scenario, I could always go back. I can always go get a job. But for you, that was not a part of your mindset. You knew that you couldn't have that hanging out there. It was, I'm not even thinking about that. That's not an option. So how important to you is that mindset? And maybe how did you, this is maybe a hard question to answer. How did you identify that? And then how did you kind of just stay focused on that?
It wasn't easy at all. And because there were so many times that I was discouraged about it,
Mm-hmm.
or I would slow down. Like when it actually happened, like I literally remember just being in my bed and not wanting to get out the bed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you know, it's pulling yourself out of a hole because it's like, okay, this is happening all over again. How do I propel and move forward? But I think one thing that really helped me, I read a book, The Secret,
Mm-hmm.
by Rhonda Byrne.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I read her book, The Secret, and that helped shape my mentality tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
And I swear, I kid you not, after I read that book, and I know they made a documentary on it too, or the documentary was first and then she wrote the book or something like that. But when I read that book, a lot of things changed for me because I had to train my mind
Mm-hmm.
to be just more positive and to be more optimistic and to also know that everything that I'm thinking about or everything that I'm feeling, you know, that's what I'm attracting to myself.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a really just groundbreaking moment for me because as I was reading this book and it's telling me, you know, that, you know, it's the law of attraction, if that's the secret. Sorry if I told the secret, but
I'm glad you brought that up because it's it's something that I have always lived. It wasn't until recently that I understood that I knew these things.
Mm-hmm.
And now I teeter and I want to expose people to these concepts.
Right.
But I also realize I can't force somebody to believe that their thoughts have that much power.
Exactly.
That what we put out there in our minds and our emotions is what's going to attract to us.
Exactly.
So there's another, I don't know if you've ever read The Adventure of I.
Mm.
You need, I'm going to send you that book. It's like, I mean, you probably don't need it from what we're gathering just right now. But for what it's done for me so far is it has pieced together some of the puzzle pieces that were missing. So it's going deeper into the secret of the way things kind of work and how the universe operates. So
right.
I'm glad that you brought that up because I talk about it a lot on the solo podcast and I write about it and I share about it.
Mm-hmm.
But to have other people who have experienced it, like that's the key is not just to talk about these things exist, but that you've experienced it is totally different. So the law of attraction is very real. And I always go, it's why you have the Debbie and the David Downers. Like they're attracting
of course,
that negative energy by putting it out there. So let's stay there. Like how do you navigate that? And maybe what's been your experience of what you put out is what comes to you?
Absolutely. So it's not like a secret, what's that Space Jam when they had the water?
Yeah.
It's not anything it's gonna like give you super strength or superpowers or anything, or it's not magic or it's nothing of that nature. But I had to literally train myself. Mm-hmm. So once you notice just your thoughts on a day-to-day basis, our mind just does it subconsciously. sometimes we can't control them. They go in autopilot, but there is a way that you can. So I had to train myself, and I started to notice, what was the voice inside of my head and whose was it? Did it even belong to me? So I had to really unpack a lot of things that did not belong to me, a lot of voices that were not mine. And I literally remember at the time, and I started writing positive affirmations on Post-it notes, and I literally had them all over, like right next to my bed when I woke up, on the wall. And then my desk is next to my bed. So literally when I turn my head, I'll see them. I put them on the side of my desk. And it sounds crazy, but that was like study mode, because I had to see that repetitively every day, put in these positive things in my head. And when I couldn't think of anything nice, making sure I could just go in my room and read the wall, because it had everything, that I aspired to be, just speaking life into myself and speaking positivity into myself, and not just myself, but my family and my friends, and just all of these things that I wanted to be, and, places that I saw myself. I put all of this on my wall. And I remember in the book, there was a section about the guy who wrote the chicken noodle soup books. And he was saying how he wanted to get his first $1 million check, but how do I make that happen? And after listening to his story of how he made that happen for himself, I used to manifest. I was like, checks in the mail. And to this day, like my friends will tell you, I only check the mail for a check. That's so every time I go to the mailbox, I anticipate a check. And I kid you not, every time I go to the mailbox, there's a check in there. But it's not even about, just wishing for all the money in the world, but just really conditioning yourself to be gentle with yourself, show yourself some grace, and then you can kind of weed out all of that negativity. And, everything that you are now beginning to fuel yourself with premium diesel, not unleaded, and you get a different outcome. And I feel like, if you feel better, you look better, you move better, you have better interactions with people. And that is how you begin to attract things that are better for you. So, if I'm open to just meeting a guy off Instagram, but that's just, knowing just the type of energy that I put out there and how it's been returned to me in just an abundance of ways, and how just that mindset changed. Because starting definitely before I read that book, that was just one of many. But before, it opened up an entire realm that I really didn't know, because everybody, I guess we're more robotic in a sense, just automatic. Everybody follows a schedule. We got to be at work at this time. We got to do that. So a lot of things are mechanical. And once I figured out, I wasn't really a part of those mechanics, and that, that's not the system that I wanted to navigate in and operate in, but to create my own and know that I could. I really I honed in on it, and I had to practice every day. I just had to practice being positive every day. And that got me up to get out the bed, that got me up to go out there and go to different events and go meet different people. And then, the action, you cannot have anything, without the action behind it. So all of the labor that I put in, it was really just the return. It was the harvest, that I've been receiving from everything that I've been putting in. But you can only do those things if you feel good. And if you think good things about yourself and you really believe it, it's the belief behind it, and not just doing it just because like maybe it will, maybe it won't. It's like, you got to go all in at all times.
We could probably spend the whole episode talking about this stuff. I'm going to link to The Secret. I'm not going to link to The Adventure of I, because I feel like that's like graduate level. But there's some other books I think that are helpful to help people kind of just maybe notice kind of what you talked about, is that, people refer to the matrix or the simulation. And for a long time, it was hard for me to understand that. But now I'm kind of understanding that. Like, I feel like I'm almost Neo in the Matrix, and like I just took the red pill and I'm figuring these things out. Right. So, but again, I think this is a topic that it's hard for us to talk about and people to buy into it. I think our conversation about it is important because it's planting a seed.
Right.
And eventually, if we plant a whole bunch of seeds, people are going to walk into these trees and they're going to have their aha moment where they connect that one chance event that really wasn't chance and they realize it. And then once they go down the rabbit hole, then they start to see things. So I appreciate you sharing that because I think it's really important. I've noticed that a lot of my creative friends, the artists, the musicians, they're all tapped in to the universe and they're tapped into this. Do you think there's something about creatives and understanding how all this law of attraction works? Or is it just, I don't believe in coincidences, but do you think that there's something about being a creative or a creator and understanding those forces? Does it go together?
I would say it's really about having an open mindset, and being open to just different ideas, different cultures, just being open. And I think that's one of the key elements. You do have a lot of creatives that are open, you know, and they kind of risk it all. They explore, having the exploration, that imagination. And a lot of people, you know, people have said this before, that a lot of people, adults, lose that childhood imagination. We
lose when we go to school. I say all the time, like every kid when they're born can create. You give a toddler crayons or Play-Doh or blocks, they make stuff.
Right.
They're imaginative. And then we get into school and most of us, and this is my story, most of us lose that. It's about the numbers and reading and social studies and we lose that inner creator. And some people are able to maintain it through because you've got the students that stay in the arts. Right. But most of us lose it. And I don't know if that's by design or if that's just kind of the way things have happened, but you're exactly right. We do lose it. And thankfully, I found my inner creator because it's made me happier. And I like I told you, I wish I could create like this. And maybe one day I will. That's not me. This is how I get to create. I get to have cool conversations and create videos and create in a different way. But it's brought me a lot of opportunity. It's brought me a lot of happiness. So sorry to interrupt, but yeah, you hit on something that I always hit on. Yeah.
So just having I guess the capacity to imagine and to dream and to not only do that, but to act on it. So it may be a link or a connection. It's not exclusively, you know, to creatives, but I definitely, you can see the correlation there. But a lot of people are definitely open to just at least dive into it and explore. And I think even more so about being open, because not just about, you know, law of attraction or things about that. Because when I study different things, I feel like I'm a researcher by just, it's embedded in me. And I not only study, you know, just energy of that nature, I'm studying different cultures. You know, I've tapped into some Thich Nhat Hanh, one of my most favorite, you know, just speakers, influencers of culture. And like his series of books, audiobooks are amazing, meditation practices and things like that. So actually being able to step outside of what you know, and what you've been so accustomed to, and, you know, what you may have grew up in, and to explore different realms. And it doesn't necessarily take me away from the original realm, because Thich Nhat Hanh, he says this in one of his books, he said, you know, the religion of your ancestors is your home. So basically what you grew up in and the things that you've, you know, been raised from, that'll always be home. But that does not mean, you know, that you can't explore and visit other places, essentially. So,
I got some of his writing right here. You were here.
He's a favorite. Like definitely that's where I learned mindfulness. That's where I learned meditation. And it's still a learn, like everything. I tweeted this the other day and I said, I'm going to stop calling what I do work, even though it's just language, but I'm going to stop calling what I do work and just call it a practice. Because everything that I do, you know, I'm a forever student. So, just always practicing. And I definitely just love exploring different areas, different avenues. And sometimes I'll do a deep dive. Sometimes I may scratch the surface, but, you know, just being open to explore different ideas and different perspectives and, you know, getting into.
So the law of attraction, there's no surprise that I pull one of his books out as you're talking about it, like wavelength and energy. So, No, I think that's great. And I identify a lot with that. And when I talk about the pursuit, I think when you go on your pursuit to find that life of more happiness and less regret, you have to experiment. And like, that's been my story in different ways. Like, I haven't experimented so much in the creative space, but when you look at my business and the different things I've done, like I kind of build in public and I experiment things. I go down a path and I'm like, that's not what I thought it was going to be. And I come back. So I think the art of the pivot is very good. I want to come back. So the openness, I think, makes sense. As a creative, like, you have to be open to ideas, and sometimes you get inspiration from the most random things. So that makes sense there. I want to talk about your style. Is that an evolution, or how did you get to, and I guess, how would you define your style? And then how did you develop it? Because there are some unique things you do, like with the eyes and different things that I really like. So how would you define the style? And then how did you get there?
Yeah, it's definitely an evolution.
Mm-hmm.
So I would define my style as expressionistic portraiture.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, I like to create faces, which is crazy because they say the human mind cannot create a face that it hasn't seen.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I enjoy just symmetry. I enjoy anatomy. I enjoy the body, the faces, and to me, that is art. You know, just the existence and being of a person. You know, whether it's the depth in their skin, the folds on their forehead, the wrinkles in their faces. You know, that is beauty to me. And I don't know where that originated. I guess for me, drawing faces when I was younger, but actually just looking more into the detail of it now when I want to create, that's always where it feels like home. You know, I still explore and try to be open to, you know, just the creative process, and I'll try different abstract things. And I've been trying to incorporate the two, because for me, I think with faces, it's so structured. You know what is there is there. So I've been tapping into abstract as well. And you see, I kind of incorporate them two together with the portraits, because the aspect of abstract, it's that imaginative process that I kind of lost. And I'm actually, well, not now, but I was scared of it. I was scared to do abstract. I'm like, because I'm a linear thinker. I'm very structured, very analytical, all of these things. I'm a Virgo. So if I got to throw that out there, it'll make more sense. So just letting yourself completely go, it was a bit scary. And I remember I started practicing abstract for the first time, I think in like 2018, 2019. And I just started doing art in 2017. So maybe like a year or two, I think it's like 2018. So maybe a year or two later, or even 2019. I don't know. But I started practicing a little bit later, you know, once I was comfortable with what I wanted to do. Like, this is what I want to make. I want to make faces. You know, I think it's art. So yeah, that was the area and of course, that's portraits. When people think about portraiture, they think about, you know, realism and things like that. I can get that detail, but I really like to just cross the boundaries of just how I see it, and then how can I incorporate my imagination in with it as well. So I also not only incorporate just that imaginative process, but just different things that are also significant to me. So you'll see different like tribal marks, just connecting just back to my lineage ancestors, and I'll incorporate that into the pieces. Sometimes I use certain symbols just based off of the meaning alone. You might see the Ankh in a lot of my pieces. You may see like a triangle. That's always a symbol of change and evolution for me. You may see like I do like 2 dashes. That's just for me is being equal, being open, being inclusive. And it's also different representations of just tribal marks, just going through, and persevering, going through different, tribulations or, things in life, trials, and being able to prosper through it. So I include these different things because they all have certain meanings to me, and I'll include that in there. And I tend to, of course, work around with the eye a little bit too, because for me, the eyes are the windows of the soul. So of course, that's what they say. But it's also a portal. And I tend to, not every time, when it calls me to do it, I'll do it. And I'll just incorporate a portal in that piece. And it's like a third eye. So it's just inflicting the wisdom or just that guidance, or, you know, however the audience is going to connect to it, you know, that's the portal to explore. And that's the representation of what it is for me. And I just love having people interpret it how they feel. So I really just get to go wild with the faces, and I try to find different things to just express myself and to identify myself through it. One thing, just through the evolution process, one thing that I'm actually transitioning to with my new project is, I say this, I've said it in the past, that you can look at my pieces and see, you can look at my art and see what I value, but you haven't been able to really look at my art and see me, like who I am as a person, as an artist, because that's been an area that's been heavily guarded. And I feel like now I'm at that time to really be an artist, because I've been like a business the whole time. So now I'm getting that pivot to transition to really just be an artist and explore and be vulnerable and, you know, really put myself in the pieces now. And so that'll be a fun journey, but that's pretty much my style in a long nutshell.
Well, somewhere in that, I will have taken a picture of the Jay-Z photo here. We'll work it so people can see your style. And then obviously I'll link to your website. I have a friend in Atlanta, Samuel. I sent him, I forget the name of it, but it's something about a little black boy in technology. I forget the name of the... Black Boy Tech. Yeah. So Samuel's an advisor. He's a black advisor. There's not a lot of black advisors in the profession, but he specializes in equity comp, excuse me. And he has a fund, like he's getting into venture investing, and it's tech related. I was like, dude, you need to have this in your office. This photo is, or this painting is perfect for you and what you're about and what you're building. So if he hasn't bought one yet, I'm going to put the pressure on him publicly in the podcast. But I'll link to that as well. I just think, like, listening to you, like, this is why I want to be around creatives. Like, you mentioned, like, you just want to paint. Like, I just want to do this all day. I want to find interesting people that inspire me and just have these conversations. Just listening to you in the way you approach it. And I think it's very cool that you are analytical while at the same time very creative, because I think that sometimes it's either or. Like, if you're analytical, you lack that creativity, or if you're creative, you're all over the place, you're a mess. Which you have both sides of the magnet to, which I think is pretty cool. Is there any form of art that you wish you were doing? So obviously, outside of moving away from like music, or are there any other art or any other ways to express yourself that you wish you were doing?
Yeah. So in high school, I always used to draw. So that's just always been there. In high school, I used to write a lot. So spoken word, poetry. We started a poetry club in high school. I used to do spoken word throughout high school, through college. I was in a rap group when I was younger. So that's it, outside of music. But I was in a rap group when I was younger at church. A lot of people do not know this. And we used to perform like on youth Sundays, and we would travel to different churches and perform for their youth. And then the friend of mine that called me and was like, no, you're not going to IUU. You're coming to Purdue. That's the one that I used to rap with. Her name's Trees. She actually works in the podcast industry. She got up and packed to LA. Oh, wow. And from Indianapolis, just left. So she's out there and she's living a dream. Like, when you coming? But yeah, so I made that transition, you know, from spoken word to rap, and we had a little rap group. And then in college, when I got to college, I was like, okay, I'm going solo. And I bought my little studio equipment, made my first mixtape, things like that. So, but just written word in general, it always has a place inside of me. And I've been tapping back into that lately, doing more writing. Like, I literally performed like the first time in a very long time. Like, I just went to open mic, and I was
awesome.
It was a therapy session, but it was good. So just that area of aspect, I'm I'm really good just in written word. Also being an analytical person, of course, when you're having conversations, sometimes I can be so over analytical or so, so it's better for me to write my thoughts out, get it down on paper. And so that performance piece as well kind of went together. I was in an acting ensemble in college. You
did it all.
A little bit. Yeah. So I definitely enjoyed that just performance in general. Now I'm trying to get outside of that because I don't want to say I've been in solitude because, a big practice of what I do is going out into the community and going to meet people because that's a main, core when it comes to my art practice is to connect the community. So I like to do interactive installations and I do like a community canvas where people can come and participate and create with me. Oh, cool. And then I'll make a piece from just all of the things that they put on there. So it's really important to me. But I've been kind of trying to dive back into it just bit by bit and be consistent with it. But definitely just written, anything written. Even acting was fun. Definitely just stepping into a whole new role. And it's like once you get outside of the aspect of fear, there's embarrassment. Once you get outside of the aspect of embarrassment, then I feel like you're completely free because like you're not scared of it and you don't care what anybody thinks about it. So, yeah.
I'm going to throw an idea out there. I don't know if this works, but I think it'd be kind of cool to connect the written and spoken word aspect with like one of your pieces of art. So like, I don't know if drawing, whatever you might be working on, if there would be the ability for you to do like some written word on it and then then when you have your show, like each painting has a spoken word component, like that would be pretty cool.
You in the mix already.
Yeah.
You in the mix already. I just started, so I'm working on a new collection and it'll exhibit next year in 2023 at Gallery 924 downtown. And the name of the exhibit is called The Women in Between. And it's gonna be just that, like I said, how I'm just exploring my artistry is gonna be that project. Like that's going to, like, I'm just gonna let it all out. So, but I do want it to be very integrated and include different components of just me, everything that I do. So I'm doing a documentary along with it. Like I studied media production and I really enjoy being behind the camera more than I do in front of it. So I'm gonna include like a documentary aspect, some portrait photography, in addition with like my paintings and portraits that I'm doing for the series. And the more I think about it, the more it evolves because I've always wanted to have, I've always wanted to do an exhibit where the piece not only has like words with it, but they can walk up and put on headphones and there's a song that goes with it. Like, so I the more I explore, I want it to be just really immersive and just really challenge myself creatively and it's like, I'm not working for money anymore. So, because there was a time where it was like the grind and go get it. And just stepping outside of that aspect and just being able to focus on the art is very new for me. And I'm just looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it as well. I definitely want to check that out. And it's funny you mentioned documentaries. Like that is one of my creative outlets. So I've only done a handful of them, but I love documentaries. And I love documentaries, not the ones that are like yours is set out, but I don't like, it's not the National Geographic documentaries.
Right.
I love the Kanye documentary where they're just getting all this film.
Yes.
And like, who would have known that he would have grown who he was, but just having that.
Yeah.
And that's what I would imagine. You're just going to be getting a bunch of film as you go through this, and then you're going to piece the story together. See, I like the piecing of the story together when there was no intent behind what the story was going to be.
Yeah.
We're just going to get a bunch of film of Boxx doing her thing, and then we're going to put it together. And the stories I do are shorter, and what I want them to be is another outlet for pursuit of showing people what their passion. So I started with my boys, and I did one with my friend who is an advisor but also DJ. But what I like to do is I like to shoot the video, and then later go back and do like a short interview.
Right.
And to me, the easy way would be you and I watch the video I shoot of you and we talk through it.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be a good story, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what I like to do is just have a separate conversation. And then I take the audio conversation,
Mm-hmm.
I take this video story, and then I put them together. And there might be a few things that I intentionally asked to connect the two, but the rest of it is just totally random. So minute 2 of the video may have been minute 8 of the conversation.
Right.
And somehow they lined up. And the one that was really cool was with my buddy Odero, who's the artist up there. I videoed him in Vegas doing a DJ set. I went to his house in St. Louis and recorded him practicing in his living room. And in his living room, he had a guitar. And I just happened to shoot 10 seconds of the guitar. I don't know why I did it. 2 weeks later, I call him, we had the conversation, I record the audio, and he happened to mention how he started playing the guitar.
Yeah.
I didn't prompt him to say it. He just mentioned it. And as soon as he said, I said, I've got 10 seconds of guitar. So in the video, in the little short, when he says guitar, there's a picture of the guitar. And people would watch that and think, oh, that was intentional. That was pure, like, alignment.
That's
so
creative.
cool.
It's creative.
So I think that's my creative outlet is to do that. So anyways, I love the idea of the documentary, and I love documentaries that are just, let's capture film and then see what's there. That's dope.
I haven't thought it out. I just knew I wanted to do it, and I was like, I'm about to go and buy everything I need. So the more I think about it, it's just so many aspects to it, and I'm going to let it unfold. But again, I like a plan, a good plan too. Mm-hmm. So definitely, I'm working on it right now though.
Well, I wrote down Gallery 924. I'm going to be following you. So I'm going to be there to check it out. I mean, that's one of the things I want to do is I want to get, even though I'm not an artist, I'm not a creator, I want to tap more into the local creative community because we have from what I can tell, we have a pretty good one. Like, I'm so mad I didn't get to go to that Butter weekend because we had friends in and then we left. I wanted to go check that out. But I want to hang around those individuals just because I get inspired by looking at what you do and following everybody. I have a few, not rapid fire per se, but quicker questions to end. And then we'll kind of wrap things up. Being that you were a rapper, and I want to find a copy of this mixtape, and we can use that as the internet, but it's buried. We can use that as the soundtrack to the video as it comes in. When you are working, do you like to work to music? And if so, is there a favorite artist, musician, style of music you like to listen to? Yeah.
So depending on what type of work, I'd like to dedicate my daytime to any administrative work because I just feel like, why am I doing that when everybody's asleep? So let me do this stuff when everybody's woke. So, the emails and checking up and following up and things like that, applications. I get that done in the daytime. When I'm creating, I like to do it at night in the evening. And for some reason, I cannot paint in the day.
Okay.
Even I do a lot of digital art too. I didn't kind of mention that in my style. I'd like to do that at night as well. And I don't know why I can't do it in the day, but I do, if I'm doing digital art, I actually like to do that in solitude, silent. If I am listening to anything, it'll probably be an audiobook. And that's specifically because I'm on the iPad. I don't know why. If I'm painting and creating, I do like to get a playlist going. I don't necessarily have a go-to artist that I listen to, but just a style, more like, I call it like millennial soul. Okay. So anything that just has like a groove vibe, I'm listening to it. And I just like to vibe out. If it's mellow, if it's chill, there's a couple playlists on YouTube. Knows me better than anybody because they curate the same playlist over and over and put the same people. Y'all getting plenty of views off of me when I'm in the zone. They just put that on, and it's always just like a nice groove. So
next question: are you going to redo your Musiq Soulchild picture?
That's crazy because I looked that up when the thought came to me. This was a few months ago, and I looked the picture. I was like, I wonder if I can find this picture because I just tried to Google it, and I'm like, I found it. I never thought about recreating it though. And maybe I send it in. I don't know who I'm gonna send it to, but yeah, I guess I really could. That's a good idea.
I feel like that'd be pretty cool. Like, do you have any copies of the old ones you did?
I wish. I do have stuff when I first started back drawing. Oh my God, it's so basic. But
what's cool about that is this summer I went to New York and I took my oldest Roman with me, and we went to the Basquiat exhibit, and they had like some of his finished paintings, but they also had just some of his scrap drawings that were put up. It was really cool just to see some of the things he was just tinkering around with. So like, even though they're basic, it'd be really cool for you to keep just for one day, to have the Boxx exhibit that has some of the stuff that was just basically trash or practice, but it'd be really cool to see.
Yeah, I keep like my sketchbooks and stuff. I don't have anything from when I was like younger. I wish, if you would have known if I would have known who I would have been, I had no clue, but I probably would have kept it. But yeah, I do keep sketchbooks. So I have like older things that I kind of hold on to.
Okay. When you think of somebody that is going to make their passion a larger part of their life, maybe it's career, maybe it's just a bigger piece. Like, what's an important characteristic you think they should have? Or another way to ask that question is, what's a characteristic about yourself that you think was beneficial to you achieving what you've achieved?
Well, I'm gonna answer both parts.
Okay, awesome.
For myself, I think one characteristic that was just really necessary was the commitment, the follow through, the execution. So being able to execute was I think what was for me. Because once I determined what it was that I was going to do, I just had to do it. And that's just as applicable to me. It wasn't a matter of like a fallback plan or anything. I knew what I was going to do. I just have to do it. So being able to execute is just very important for me. And really doing that to my best ability. For other people who may not be designed the way that I am, human design is a really big thing as well. But I would say just faith for them, for me as well. But to really have that faith in the unknown and in uncertainty.
You gotta be kidding me. Right, wait. I, as a host, I should interrupt you. So I have a quote from Kendrick Lamar. So you can see the frame over there. Yeah. That was his letter that he wrote when he said he was leaving TDE. And my wife had this bookmark made for me, which is in my book that we talked about. There's beauty in completion and always faith in the unknown. And the fact that you said faith and in the unknown, like I had to interrupt. So yeah, exactly.
That's crazy. Yeah. Or is it? No,
but I love these moments because
confirmation for you for something.
And everybody at home is watching and hearing this happen in the moment. So sorry to interrupt. But the fact that you said that, I had to.
But yeah, just faith in the unknown and I was also recently having this conversation with a friend too, just that uncertainty of not knowing, is it going to work out? Are you going to fail? You don't know. But it's like, if you have faith and you really believe and with just pure desire, just genuine and all of the goodness that's in your body. And if you just believe that like, this is what I want, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to pursue, this is who I want to be. And you have that faith, you have no room to worry because that deflects. It deflects anything that can and will come your way. So just having that unwavering faith and being able to just go all in and bet on yourself and using all of your resources. But of course, we all know faith without works, without action is dead. So faith is an action word to me. It's not just like a believing word. It's like having faith is meaning you're going to go and put in everything that it takes to get you there because you have it inside of you already. So it's like, do you believe in yourself? Do you believe in the universe? Do you believe in the world? Or do you believe in those higher powers that are going to help get you there and get you to what it is you want out of life?
That's my only beef with The Secret. I feel like The Secret, the book, makes it seem like you don't have to put in the work.
Yeah.
That's the only downside. And I don't know if you've read any.
It doesn't like lay it out.
Right.
Because it goes from, okay, this is what I wanted. And then it skips the middle part.
Right.
To, oh, now. And I feel like even conversations like podcasts, things like that, people, they skip that middle part. And I probably skipped that middle part too, but the in between, like the jam and the peanut butter and jelly, it wasn't good. It wasn't sweet. And it was hard. It was hard. There were moments where I wanted to get a job because it's like, okay, like I was grinding, you know, I was like, I have to book this amount of parties because I have to pay bills. Right. So, and you know, transitioning from having a full-time job, I had certain expenses, you know, had already just purchased a car, you know, I had just got a townhome and all of these things, like a lifestyle that I was developing based off of my income. And now you don't have that anymore. So of course my story is a little bit different, but the in-between parts, you know, there were moments. Literally, I would Airbnb my apartment because it's like, I'm not about to go get a job, but I do need the extra money. You know, there's a dog walking app. I used to walk dogs. Like that in between, it was like everything that I need to do to fill in the gap because I'm not going back. And, you know, I need to make sure that I can get up and continuously do this. I need to buy supplies. I need to be able to show up and really just invest in myself. Anything that I had to do in between, you know, within my moral compass. Right. You know, so certain things I would just mostly Airbnb. I didn't mind. I would sleep in my car. I've done that, you know, to rent out my apartment. Is downtown, good place, really nice atmosphere, good vibes, you know. So that in between is like, are you willing to do those things to get you there? Because it's not sweet all the time. And that's not mean it's going to be hard all the time. But, you know, there were days where I didn't want to, but I knew I committed. That's why I said my execution was for me is to execute and to not lie to myself, because that's the hardest thing that you could do is look in the mirror and lie to yourself in your face. So I can't live with myself like that. And I had to be true to my word and true to what I said I was going to do. And I still have to do it every day.
The guest that will be on the podcast before, Austin Keene, he talked about all the stuff he did to be able to become world champ skimboarder, like work at all these different odd jobs. And he said something I really liked was that he didn't allow those jobs to become his identity. They didn't define him. They were just the means to the end to be able to get to where he wanted to be, which is the same thing. And I think that this last moment that almost didn't happen may be part of the most important part of this conversation, and that it isn't a smooth run. But I do believe that when you're pursuing your passions, that non-sweet jam isn't as bad as it would be if you were stuck doing a job you hated. Like the unfun things, the tough times don't seem as bad when you're in control of your destiny. But when you're having these tough times and you're not even in control, to me, I think it's even worse.
Yeah, definitely.
My final question for you, how do you define success for you? And it could be success today, or it could be success when you look back over your career. But like, how do you define success for you?
I think I would define success for me is just being able to always be myself 110% authentically. I can walk in a room and I can show up as me. I can show up as me. I can, you know, experience the moment as me. I don't have to put on any suits, you know, any roles, or just have to be anything but me. And being able to do that that's success for me. Just being able to be my genuine self, my authentic self in everything that I do and everything that I show up in, every room that I'm in. And yeah, it's like, this is who I am, and there is no sugarcoating it. I'm not going to switch it up for you. So just having that freedom, that freedom. And I think it goes hand in hand, because that's literally, that was one of the affirmations that I wrote on my wall, was freedom. Just to be free. Just to get up and do the day, however it may go. But yeah, that's how I would define it. And, you know, I feel like I'm there.
Well, where can everybody watching and listening follow you so they know, how they can support you, what you're up to, when you have your exhibits? Like, what are the social media, the places we want to send them to?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can follow me on Boxx the Artist. That's on every single platform, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Boxx the Artist, all major platforms, boxtheartist.com. You can connect with me. I post on Instagram, mostly just my day. I'll be like, if anybody comes to my Instagram and you want to see me doing art, my bad. But nah, it's just me taking care of my plants, drinking water. But, and then all the cool places that I get to go to as well, just living as an artist. I try to hit the art scene heavy. And if it's not for me, to just support my colleagues and my peers in the realm. So just definitely connecting with me on those platforms. Boxx the Artist, subscribe to my newsletter. I do a monthly, sometimes bi-monthly newsletter. And a lot of things that I may not talk about publicly, I'll share in that newsletter. I have people, they'll send me different pictures. You know, I get their saying, can I send this out of my newsletter? They send me pictures with their art, or if they're passing through the airport. And I just keep everybody in the loop, definitely through that newsletter and through those social media platforms. But
well, per the norm, that'll all be on the show notes so everybody can click and get to it very easily. I will make sure I subscribe to the email. I didn't know you had that. So, well, I want to thank you for your time. I just want to thank you for this experience. And just like I mentioned, that I love doing this. And as I'm sitting here with you, this conversation just gave me the confidence that I made a decision recently to pull back on some of the other content I'm doing and go harder into the podcast. And like, I feel like this is what, like, this gave me a lot of confidence in this. So I appreciate you coming in and being vulnerable and meeting me off of the internet. I had a lot of fun. So with that, I will, we'll let you get to your day. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Be sure to follow Boxx, support her, go buy your prints or other things, commission her, or have her commission her to do a piece of work for you even as well. And I will probably do a little bit of like follow-up content when Gallery 924 comes up. Maybe shoot some photos, shoot some videos of that and share. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And everybody, let's keep pursuing.